The story kicks off on a stormy night. David was in his room painting when he realized the house wasn't safe anymore. He grabbed his family and rushed to the basement just as a massive tree crashed through the window, destroying his latest artwork. By morning, the yard was a scene of chaos. Billy ran to check the boathouse, completely wrecked, and discovered the tree came from their neighbor Norton's property. David had been asking Norton to cut it down for 3 years with no luck. Furious, he decided to confront him. Meanwhile, Steph noticed thick fog rising from the mountains, assuming it was just rain. At Norton's place, David found his own car smashed but offered Norton a ride into town. At the supermarket, panic had set in. People were hoarding supplies. Just then, a fire truck raced past, scaring Billy. Before David could calm him, a terrified old man burst in, claiming something in the fog had attacked his friend, and John might already be dead. Fear swept through the store as the staff locked the doors. Someone tried to escape, only to vanish in the fog. Then the ground shook violently, forcing everyone to drop to the floor. Tension spiked as shoppers debated whether to stay put or risk going out. Wanda, a scared mother, insisted on returning home to her kids, but no one dared join her. She left alone. David tried to soothe his frightened son when an older woman, Irene, introduced Amanda, the city's new third-grade teacher. The brief calm shattered when a strange noise came from the warehouse. The generator had failed. Darkness swallowed the supermarket, and in the chaos, David stumbled, falling to the floor. Suddenly, someone was violently trying to force the back door open. David panicked and warned everyone, then rushed back with a few others to the warehouse. Norm, a brave young man, insisted on checking the exhaust fan outside, but David tried to stop him, warning that whatever was out there would get in if the door opened. Everyone laughed. Ignoring the warnings, Jim and Mayan sent Norm outside. Before he could even step out, a massive tentacle shot from the fog, wrapping around him and dragging him toward the unknown. Screams filled the warehouse, but David didn't hesitate. He ran after Norm, pulling with all his strength. More tentacles emerged, covered in jagged spikes that could tear through human skin. David and Ali fought desperately to save him while Jim and Mayan cowered in terror. Within moments, Norm was completely ensnared. David realized he might be too late, but Ali slammed the gate shut, and David hacked at the creature's limb with an axe. In a fury, David blamed Jim for Norm's death, while Ali urged everyone to face the truth so no one else would make the same mistake. David decided to confront Norton, who dismissed their story as a hoax. David offered proof, the severed tentacle, but Norton refused to look. Finally, Ali rallied everyone to hear the truth. They all saw the melted, black, oozing tentacle in the warehouse, confirming the danger was real. Terrified but resolute, they began barricading the supermarket doors and reinforcing the glass to keep the monster out. While everyone was busy fortifying the store, Mrs. Carty quietly slipped into the bathroom, dropping to her knees in prayer. In chaotic times, talking to God always calmed her, and tonight was no different. Amanda entered, and Mrs. Carty froze, sensing someone. She paused her prayers, rising cautiously. Amanda smiled gently, assuring her there was no need to be afraid or embarrassed, and that she was there to listen. But pride ran deep. Mrs. Carty coldly rejected the offer, declaring she didn't need anyone like Amanda as a friend. Stepping back into the crowd, Mrs. Carty loudly proclaimed, "God's arrival is near. There's still time to repent." She believed the horrors unfolding were divine prophecy, not a monster attack, and soon, she herself would ascend to heaven. Amanda, frustrated by her talk of the end times, slapped her. Yet Mrs. Carty remained undaunted, warning that a new creature would appear tonight, demanding more sacrifices. Though some doubted her sanity, deep down everyone sensed she might be right. The monster could return at dusk. Meanwhile, Dan asked Bud if there were weapons in the store. Bud shook his head. Mr. Cornell offered a shotgun from his truck, but David refused. Going outside was certain death. Amanda revealed a revolver and bullets in her bag and handed it to Ollie, a former state shooting champion, to defend everyone if needed. Norton, ever the skeptic, rallied a group convinced this was a natural or scientific phenomenon, not divine judgment. He argued the only way to survive the fog was to venture outside for help. David disagreed, sparking a heated debate. Finally, he proposed a compromise. If Norton insisted on going, he should tie a long rope to his waist so those inside could track his progress. If the rope stretched beyond 100 meters without incident, it meant the outside was safe. Norton scoffed, calling it foolish. Morales stepped forward, volunteering to retrieve the shotgun from Mr. Cornell's truck outside. With heavy hearts, the team tied a rope around him and watched as he disappeared into the fog. Norton and his crew had already headed toward the city. Slowly, David's team eased the rope, but then a violent tug yanked it hard from the other side. Panic set in. Everyone heaved with all their strength, hoping to pull Morales back, only to recoil in horror. Half of him came back, from the waist down, the rest devoured by some monstrous creature. Bud immediately ordered the doors shut. David, Jim, and Mayan rigged emergency lights, while they barricaded the entrances with food packs, leaving small gaps to watch the outside. As dusk fell, Dan jumped when a giant insect smashed into a window, sticking to the glass. Soon, more grotesque insect-like creatures landed, some as long as swords. Mrs. Carty froze, horrified by their sheer size. Then even bigger, more terrifying monsters appeared, pounding on the glass. Ali realized they were drawn to light. "Turn off all the lights now!" he yelled, plunging the supermarket into darkness. It was too late. The creatures smashed through the glass, flooding the store with chaos. Amanda grabbed a nearby iron crowbar, swinging furiously to fend off the advancing monsters, taking down several. Meanwhile, a massive insect attacked Sally, stinging her neck with a venomous barb. Wayne tried to save her, but it was too late. Her face turned blue, her throat swelling so fast she couldn't breathe, and she collapsed. Thinking quickly, David remembered the creatures were drawn to fire and light. He grabbed a torch-like stick and set it ablaze, hoping to repel them. Ali aimed his revolver at a giant bat-like beast, but it moved too fast, his shot missed. Another man tried to mimic David with fire, but lost control. The flames spread, fueling the chaos. In seconds, the supermarket was a maelstrom of screams, fire, and terror. The fire spread to his clothes, forcing him to frantically run and beat the flames out. Amid the chaos, David swung his axe at a flying bat-like creature, cutting it down before its burning body could do more damage. Meanwhile, a giant insect landed on Mrs. Carmod, but she remained eerily calm, her face glowing with religious fervor rather than fear. She whispered, "If this is God's will, I am ready." Miraculously, the creature hovered away without harming her. Everyone around was stunned. Ali finally shot another bat-like monster, which tried to crawl away but collapsed near the door. With several inside creatures dead and the rest fleeing, an uneasy silence fell. The survivors began to wonder if Mrs. Carmod wasn't insane at all, but perhaps a messenger of God. Her warnings were coming true. She had predicted the monsters would return at midnight, claiming more lives, and they had. Meanwhile, one injured survivor writhed in pain from burns and begged David for relief. With the hospital hours away, he considered taking Ali's gun to end his suffering. David soothed him, promising he would find antibiotics and painkillers, then quickly began planning a pharmacy run. Amanda arrived with devastating news. Hattie had overdosed on all her medication and died. David and Amanda hid her body. The horror they witnessed left everyone mentally shaken. David immediately hugged his son Billy, knowing how worried he had been. Meanwhile, Joe, racked by the pain of his burned body, died that afternoon despite receiving medication. Mrs. Carty convinced some survivors that she was a prophet, directly connected to God. Amanda and the remaining sane survivors realized staying put would drive them mad. They joined David and backed his plan. Escape south in the Jeep. Wayne set out to gather military allies but discovered the soldiers were already dead. They revealed they'd been working on a secret government project to open a portal to another dimension, never imagining bloodthirsty creatures would spill through, threatening humanity itself. Mrs. Carty seized on this, spinning a conspiracy theory that humanity was being punished for defying God. She ordered her followers to kill Wayne as a sacrifice for their sins. David tried to intervene, but the zealots blocked him, and Wayne was dragged off to be devoured by the monsters. By morning, David and his team silently slipped out of the supermarket and raced to their car, but Mrs. Carty caught them. Standing before her followers, she delivered a fiery, hypnotic speech so compelling that Jim and the others fell completely under her sway. Mrs. Carty declared that sacrificing sinners was the only way to stop God from sending hellish monsters, her voice dripping with fear and mystery. Her followers, including Jim, hung on every word, ready to go to any extreme. But Ali noticed his closest friends slipping into blind superstition. Determined to stop them, he drew his gun, eyes steely with resolve. He advanced on Mrs. Carty and fired. The shot was perfect, Silence fell. The so-called prophet lay dead, no supernatural powers, just fear and delusion. Realizing this, everyone scrambled to clear the way. David and his team sprinted out of the supermarket into thick, suffocating fog. Strange sounds echoed around them. Hearts raced with every step. Ali found the jeep and opened all doors for the others. The air was heavy with moisture, smoke, broken glass, and burnt debris, amplifying the terror. Just as they were about to climb in, a massive arthropod emerged from the fog. Its insect-like body, long spindly legs, and razor-sharp claws froze the team in fear. They watched in horror as it tried to devour a teammate, whose screams pierced the mist. Half the group got trapped by another monstrous spider whose webs were like iron chains. The rest raced to the jeep. Ali fired up the engine while David kept watch, ensuring the survivors were safe. Every moment was a battle with death itself. Amid the haze, shattered debris, and smoke, the team's hearts pounded as they raced for survival. This was no longer a fight, it was a desperate bid to stay alive. On the road through the fog, David felt the full weight of their losses. Turning the key, the jeep roared to life, headlights cutting a narrow path through the darkness. Hands trembled, hearts raced, but there was no other choice. Heading south, David drove to his home to get Steph, but she was gone. Despite grief and despair, he resolved to save his son, Billy. Suddenly, a colossal, mountain-sized monster crossed the city streets. David killed the engine and extinguished the lights, holding his breath as the beast passed, oblivious to him. Once the creature moved on, he restarted the jeep, every sense on high alert, determined to survive and keep Billy safe. The shock hit when David realized the jeep was out of fuel, and the worst part? They were still far from escaping the fog. At that moment, the team understood they'd reached their absolute limit. Apocalypse-level fear gripped them, and all hope felt shattered. Frustration and despair hung heavy in the air. David checked his revolver. Only 4 bullets left, while 5 people sat in the jeep. The weight of survival rested entirely on his shoulders. Every second now was filled with terror. In the darkest moment, David made the unthinkable. Consumed by fear and desperation, he killed his son and friends with his own hands, leaving himself alone with guilt and pain. His only goal: end it all without enduring any more suffering. Stepping out of the jeep, he almost welcomed death, hoping a monster would finally devour him. But instead, his eyes fell on an army tank. A rescue team had arrived, systematically wiping out all the monstrous creatures hiding in the fog. Watching the soldiers' effortless, powerful extermination of the horrors he had helped create, David broke down completely. Tears streamed as he faced the true magnitude of the nightmare he'd orchestrated. His son, his friends, all lost in vain. This final scene captured the deepest pain, regret, and the limits of humanity. This is how our story ends.